Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Today we'll be dealing with the topic, it's subject business law, and we'll be dealing with the first unit, which is your contract law, contract act. First, we will discuss what do you mean by business law? Okay. So now we will go back to slide 1. So introduction. So what do you mean? What is business law, and what do you mean by business law? What does it deals with? Okay, so we can say that business law deals with rights and obligations arising out of mercantile transactions among the mercantile people. So what do you mean by this? It is nothing but it deals with rights and obligations which we need to be done among the business people for business transactions to be done. So we can say that it deals with aggregate body of legal rules connected with trade, industry and commerce. So what do you mean by this? So it deals whatever the legal rules are there, that rules have to be framed, which is to be connected with, let it be trade, let it be industry and let it be commerce. So what are the activities are being taken for trade, what are the activities are being taken for industry, for which the legal rules have to be framed so that no one is being deceived. So that is being undertaken by your business law. Next, the scope of business law is ever widening due to increasing complexities of business world. So we can say that business law is very, very important and its scope is widening a lot. Why? Because of the increasing complexities of the business world. What are the complications are there? What are the complexities are there while doing the business, and it can be forwarded and it can be cleared and it can be solved only with the business law, which deals with the rules and regulations. And you know very well that no one is against the rules and no one is against the rules and regulations which are being done in the contract, which are being written in the contract, and we can say that no one is boss of rules and regulations. Okay, I think now you are clear with what you mean by business law and what it deals with and why it is very, very important. Now we will discuss what is law of contract. What is law of contract means? We can say that contract becomes the important and basis of business law, and we can say that it is the foundation of many other laws. It is the foundation of many other laws. Now you will come to know, we can say simply that law means it operates to regulate the actions of persons with respect to one another, an entire group of the society and the state. And law can also be a wider subject, touches all walks of life. And we may say that there are various branches of law concerning specific aspects like civil, criminal, administrative, additional, constitutional, business, labor laws. So the legal framework within which different business firms have to operate are largely governed by general laws applicable to all forms of organizations irrespective of their size and ownership, and these fall into the category of your business law. So many rules and regulations are there, so many laws are there in our country which are being prevailed, but we deal only with the mercantile laws, we deal only with the business laws. Okay, so we can say that the business law or the commercial law or the mercantile law all are one and the same, and don't get confused with all this terminology. So now I said, now law of contract means, it's a law of contract means business law deals with laws of contracts, and law of contract is the foundation for many other laws, and every person in the organized society enters a contract consciously or unconsciously. So we can say that every person in an organized society, he makes up a contract, whether consciously or unconsciously. You need not say that a perfect business person only makes a contract. No, not at all. Even the common lay person can also make a contract unconsciously. Now think, for example, when we think of purchasing something, when we think now you want to do some household work, now you want to get an electrician to be done some electrical work at your house, and you invite him and you ask him to do the particular work, and he may charge you 5,000 for that particular work. And what you say to him? You say that First, I'll give you advance for 2,000, and when the work is completed, I will be paying the remaining amount of 3,000. So that is nothing but you are giving and you are doing a contract with the electrician. When he also, you bargain with him and he also bargains with him, no sir, I can't do for 5,000, and he may say, he may demand you some 7,000, and you just bargain with him to do for 5,000, and you both of them agreed to get the work done for 5,000, and the person who agrees for your offer and promise to do the work, so we can say that the electrician work that you undertake to complete at your house for rupees 5,000 is itself a contract where you pay him advance of 2,000 and you promise to pay him the remaining 3,000 after the work is being completed. So we can say that any layperson can also come into a contract, can also attempt a contract unconsciously, and never think that only the business people manages to do a contract. No, not at all. A contract can be done by any person, let it be a super great business personality or a simple layman or a vegetable vendor or the normal household persons who does their work at home. Okay. Next, thus such contracts creates legal relation giving rise to certain rights and obligations. Now I said, whenever we are doing a contract, if it has a legal relation, if it creates a legal relation, then we can say that particular contract is valid. If any contract is being done, if it doesn't have any legal relation, if doesn't enforce any legal activity, then we can't say that a particular contract is a valid contract. So this is nothing but your loss of contract. What you need to think, and more extension is there of this law of contract rules and regulations. We go for the fourth slide. Now look, the object of law of contract is to ensure rights and obligations created by contract are honored. So what is the object of law? While dealing with the contract, two persons will be there who held the contract, and they create among themselves the rights and obligations in that particular contract, and both the persons will think that the contract has to be honored. When they think that whatever the rights and obligations are being mentioned in the contract, both the persons will agree to that particular rights and obligations. Then only that contract is honored. Okay. Next, the expectations created with the promises of the party of agreement are fulfilled. Now only I said, whatever the promises are being mentioned in the agreement, that has to be fulfilled by both the parties. The person who is offering it and the person who is taking up the contract. So both have to agree it and both have to fulfill the promise. Now only I gave an example. Now take for example, you want to construct a house. And you have given some amount to the contractor, some 10 lakhs. He has agreed to do your house for 20 lakhs, and you have agreed to pay 10 lakhs as an advance. Means you are promising to pay 20 lakhs, and that fellow is promising to make your house within 20 lakhs, right? You promised him to pay by completing the work 20 lakhs, and the person is also promising you to build your house for 20 lakhs. So that is nothing but the promise that both the two parties make for each other. So you promise him to pay advance of rupees 10 lakhs, and after work is done, completed thoroughly, then you promise him to pay more 10 lakhs. So this is nothing but the expectations created by the promises which are being filed in the contract. When a particular person, when the promisee or the promiser, when both the parties fulfill all the promises, then we can say that the agreement has been fulfilled, or else we can't say that the agreement is fulfilled. If any of the party doesn't fulfill the promise, we can't say the agreement has been fulfilled. Okay. Legal remedies are available if the purpose of the agreement is not met. Whatever the contract is there, that has to be enforceable by law. And if any of the party doesn't fulfill the promise, then the opposite aggrieved party can approach the court for not fulfilling his promises, for not fulfilling his payment on whatever be the problem in that particular contract, etc., etc., etc. Okay. So the parties have the right to approach the court to fulfill if they are being deceived by that particular contract. Okay. Next, I think, are you clear? Next, nature of the law of contract. So what do you mean by nature of the law of the contract? It is a branch of law. It is a branch of law which determines the circumstances which a promise or agreement shall be legally binding on the person making it. Now, you make a promise, you make a note in the contract that I am going to do this. And after taking the required amount, after fulfilling everything, after getting whatever you need from that particular contract, and you are no way interested to do that particular promise, and you are no way interested to do that particular work, then automatically whatever promise you have done, you are binded by it. Now you can't say that no, I have not done this promise. You can't say that no, I'm not legally binded to do this. No, you can't do that. Why? Because it has been mentioned in the contract when you have made a mind to fix it to that particular contract. See, everything is being enforceable in law. So when you are making the contract, you should be able to agree whatever the promise you are making in the contract. If a particular promise you are making, you are agreeing to do that, then you should keep it in mind that you are legally binded to do particular work, whatever it is being mentioned by you in the contract. Clear? So you can say that whatever promise you promise, whatever the work you promise to do in that particular contract, you are legally binded by the law and you can't escape from the contract. You have to do it at any cost because it is being enforceable by law. The person who is not receiving your promise, the person who is not receiving your work can approach the court and he can file a case against you because whatever the contract you has made, that is being legally binded. That you have to keep it in mind. When a particular contract is legally binded, then obviously the opposite person can approach the court and can file a case on opposite person who is not fulfilling his contract. So we can say it lays down certain limiting principles within the framework of the agreement made. It itself, the agreement itself, the contract itself makes them principles within the framework for which you are being bound. You agree to pay, you agree to do some work, you agree to give your products, something extra, etc., where you are bound to do something for some other person for which you are being paid. And you have taken the payment and you are not doing that work automatically, then you have to be punished then. So we can say law of contract itself gives some limiting principles. It creates a framework of the agreement whatever you are made with your partner, okay, with the opposite partner. So the parties to an agreement lay down their own terms and conditions. So no one is giving on the terms and conditions. The parties only makes their own terms and conditions. No boss is there, no CM, no PM, no one is there. When you are getting into a contract, you and the opposite person, you themselves lays terms and conditions and you agree by it, you sign it, and you have to go according to the contract, whatever you thought, whatever you think to do it. Now take for example, you are a person owning a company. And you are, I can say that you are manufacturing some crackers, okay? Some crackers, firecrackers. So person A has come to you and he said that he needs some 1 ton of crackers of different varieties, and you agree to manufacture 1 ton of crackers and he gives you a period of 1 month, okay, a period of 1 month, and you are being paid some 5 lakhs for it. You are being paid and the contract is for 10 lakhs and you are being paid. So whenever the particular person comes to you and approaches you that he needs some 1 ton of different crackers for 10 lakhs and you also agreed to that particular amount and he gives the term period for 1 month. So what do you mean you need to do? You need to prepare, you mean to manufacture, you need to produce that particular various type of crackers which are being ordered by him within 1 month. Okay, within 1 month you have to prepare whatever the list that particular fellow has given to you, and this will be in a written agreement where the opposite person, now A has approached you and he's given you 5 lakhs. So everything will be clearly mentioned in the contract that he has approached you and he has ordered some different varieties of crackers for 1 ton of rupees, for 1 ton, for which the estimation rupees is 10 lakhs, what you have been demanded, and that particular fellow also agreed to pay you 10 lakhs, and for that particular work to be done, he has paid you an advance of 5 lakhs. And it will be also be there mentioned that you will be promising him to deliver the goods within 1 month. Within 1 month, after delivering the goods, you will be paid by the remaining amount of rupees 5 lakhs. On the whole, your contract of 10 lakhs will be finished when you deliver the goods within 1 month. So I think you people are very clear that the particular person, when he approaches you for a contract, a deal, he is mentioning everything in that particular deal where you may not be deceived by him and he may not be deceived by you. Now take for example, now he has approached you and he has paid you 5 lakhs advance, and you, the person B, had given all the crackers, whatever he has demanded, and you manufactured, you produced, and you delivered within 1 month whatever he requires, okay, and you deliver, and that particular person doesn't agree to pay you more 5 lakhs, and it says that no, I can't pay you 5 lakhs, I just pay you 3 lakhs. No, at that time you can also approach the court where this fellow has promised you to pay 5 lakhs after the work is being done, after the products are being delivered to him within 1 month. So according to the bond, according to the contract, you have produced, you have manufactured all the crackers of wide varieties which are being demanded by him within the time frame fixed by him, that is 1 month. When you have prepared everything within 1 month, then obviously you have the right to get the payment of remaining 5 lakhs which he promised you to pay, which he promised to pay you. Okay, when this, so we can say that nature of law of contract will be in such a way that both the parties won't be deceived, ma. If I'll say orally, we can change our tongue. If you go for a contract orally, the opposite person may change the tongue and you may change the tongue. You may change your words. But when you go with the contract which is in the written form and which is enforceable by the law, then obviously no person can deceive you nor you can deceive anyone. So this is nothing but your nature of law of contract, where the party of an agreement make themselves the own conditions and own terms. Now you got what do you mean by own terms and conditions? I think I'm very clear. Own terms and conditions means, now I said he goes for a contract of 10 lakhs where he agrees to pay 5 lakhs, and B, the person who is a manufacturer of crackers, would be prepared to deliver the goods within 1 month. So that is the condition where he pays 5 lakhs advance. And A tells, if you deliver the goods within 1 month, I would pay the remaining amount of 5 lakhs. So these are nothing but terms and conditions which are being fixed by themselves, the party A and the party B. No one else is fixing the terms and conditions. Here, the parties who are being involved in the contract, they themselves fix the conditions. So we can say, whatever the agreement is laid by the parties, they themselves fix the terms and conditions, and no law, no nothing will, we can say, fix the laws. Okay. So next, upheld by the courts as long as they do not infringe upon any provisions of the law. Thus, contracts are the basis of the most of the business transactions. Hence, law of contract plays a significant role and becomes the foundation of every business activity. So, we can say that whatever the business they are carrying out, it should not be infringed. It should not be infringed by any court of. It should not be infringed by any court. Okay. So it should not be against any provisions of the law. Whatever you are producing, whatever the act you are undertaking, whatever the activity you are going under the contract, it should not be against the laws, rules and regulations which are against the security of the country. Okay, so we can say thus contract becomes the basis of most of the business transactions. Now you are an unknown person to a businessman, and businessman is also an unknown person to you. You just believe on the contract whatever been dealt. You just believe the contract which is in the written form. You just believe the contract which is in the bond form. where the willingness to pay or the willingness to promise the desire, what you required, is just mentioned everything in the contract of the deed. Okay, so here we know we don't need the face-to-face interaction, we don't need a heavy long relationship with the particular person where you are going for the contract. Contract itself is enforceable by law, and no person can deceive it if it is a valid contract, if it is enforceable by law. Okay, so hence we can say law of contract plays a significant role and becomes the foundation of business activity, right? I think everyone agree with this. Law of contract plays a significant role, obviously, and it becomes the foundation of business activity. So we can't just believe a person, but we believe the contract, but we believe the deed what we just signed between the two persons. So we can say the contract only plays a significant role when we don't even bother who the person is, we don't even bother who the person, we don't even believe who the person is, but we believe the contract which is being signed between both of us, right? We believe the contract which is being signed between both of us, and we believed the words which are being mentioned, we believe the terms and conditions which are being mentioned there, and we agree it. And everything, if something fails, we just go with the contract and we approach the nearest court. We approach the court wherever it is these sales deeds acts are being taken up, and we get whatever the loss has been done to us, and we can claim the whole amount, right? So we can say that there is no need of interaction. We can say that where there is no need of face-to-face interaction with the person, we don't need any kind of relationship, we don't need any kind of friendship, we don't need any family relations with a particular person whom you want to deal with the business, whom you want to deal a business. So obviously, I think you people also agree, law of contract plays a significant role and it becomes the foundation of each and every business activity, right? Next. So now you will be thinking how all this all this came into existence, Contract Act, how it has been came into existence. So what are the rules and regulations prevailing now? This all laws belongs to Indian Contract Act 1872, and this act came into effect in September 1, 1872 itself. That you have to remember here. Whatever the laws we are dealing now, they are being done. They are being done in Indian Contract Act 1872. Now it is 2020. Just remember, everything has been framed in 1872 itself only. And that act came into effect on September 1st, 1872. And you have to remember this point. Whatever the act has been made, whatever the Indian Contract Act 1872 has been made, it was being applicable to whole country except Jammu and Kashmir. And the act originally had 266 sections. The act means when it was been framed in 1872, it has 266 sections. Okay, it has 266 sections. Next, so I would like to even give a brief description. What are the being acts are there? What are the total acts? You know very well, 266. So I want to tell you how it has been divided also. Just have a look, ma. General principles of law of contract were from section 1 to section 75. Next, contract relating to sales of goods, section 76 to section 124. Next, special kind of contracts were there from section 125 to section 238. Okay. Next, contracts with partnership. Any business which is being done with partnership, that was being dealt between 239 section to 266. Now you will want to just a special kind of contracts means indemnity, guarantee, bailment, pledge. So all these sections, these are being divided in this manner. So better remember how they are being divided. Okay, so you should have a clear indication, a clear view that whatever the acts are being carried now, that just related to Contract Act 1872. Now, so what do you mean by now? I think I have given a brief a clear view of history of Indian Contract Act 1872. Now we will deal with the definition of contract. What is contract? How it has been defined by some thinkers. So now just listen now. Salmon says contract is an agreement creating, defining obligation between the two parties. Okay, according to Salmon, contract is nothing but an agreement which is being made between two parties by creating and defining the obligation, what has to be done, what has not to be, what to do and what not to do. That is being mentioned in the contract. So that is nothing but your contract which is been defined by Salmon. Okay. Now next go for Sir Frederick Pollock says every agreement and promise enforceable at law is a contract. Okay. Every agreement or promise, whatever it may be, which is enforceable at law is a contract. Now I said whatever agreement is there, whatever contract is there, if it is enforceable by law, any agreement which is made which is enforceable at law, then we can say it is a contract. Now take for example, now I say two sisters are there. Now they want to now sister wants her elder want to write some practical notes for her, and she promises that she will do her PPTs for her in written. Now you can't say that is a contract. You can say that is an agreement. Okay, any agreement which is enforceable by law, then only it is called a contract. Any agreement which is being made by domestic purposes, then you can't say it is a contract. Okay, now I gave a clear example. I think you people are well aware what is an agreement and what is a contract. Agreement means casually we do is, but the agreement which is enforceable by law, then it becomes a contract. Okay, hence contract is an agreement which is legally binding. A contract is an agreement which is legally binding and enforceable at law. So we can say, what do you mean by contract? It is an agreement which should be legally binded and it should be enforceable at law. Then only we can say that particular contract is that particular agreement is a contract. Okay, so you can say that all agreements are not contracts, but all contracts are agreements. Okay, again I repeat, all agreements are not contracts, but all contracts are agreements. Keep this in mind. Okay, next we go for, so what are the essential elements? There are two essential elements of contract. One is agreement and one is enforceability of law. Now only we said these both should be there. So what do you mean by agreement? Okay, so agreement is defined under section 2E. A proposal when accepted becomes promise, forming consideration for each other. Now we are giving a proposal. When it is being accepted by other person, it becomes a promise, forming a consideration for each other. Then only agreement can be done. Now whatever proposal you have given to the person, if it is not been accepted by other person, then you can't go for agreement, right? Can you go for it? No. Now take for example, now I said now you are just doing some kind of business and you got a contract and you are preparing some bath soaps. Okay, now immediately a person comes, Shrikant comes to you and approaches you that to produce bath soaps of 500 within 3 days. So that is nothing but a proposal, and you may not have that much human resource where you can produce 500 soaps within 3 days, and at that moment you doesn't have in the raw material required for preparing the soaps. Then obviously whatever the proposal he has given to you, you may not agree. Okay, when you accept, it becomes a promise. Okay, now you're not accepting it. You are unable to produce 500 soaps within 3 days because you are not having the human resources, because you are not having the raw material required for producing that 500 soaps. Then obviously you won't accept. When you won't accept, it doesn't become a promise. When you're ready to accept, when you're ready to Take for example, that fellow is paying you for 500 soaps, somewhere at 20,000, and you may think, not 20,000, you may think some 50,000 is paying. You are just producing some good skin whitening bath soaps, okay, and that fellow is agreeing to pay 50,000 for 500 soaps, and obviously you think, if you get a maximum profit of that particular deal within 3 days, and obviously even though you're not having the human resources, you try to go for getting the assistance of some labor to do that particular contract, or to complete finish that particular contract within 3 days, and you promise to do it, the production of 500 soaps within 3 days, and obviously then you accept. When you accept, it becomes a promise, and you promise him to give 500 soaps within 3 days, and that fellow also promise you to pay 50,000 within 3 days. That becomes a consideration for both of you. Then you say agreed for the agreement, right? So we can say that when a person comes with a proposal, when the opposite person accepts it, it becomes a promise. When both accepts, it becomes a consideration. Consideration is nothing but the price the opposite person is willing to pay for the promise you have done to him. Okay, so that is nothing but an agreement. Next, promise is defined in section 2. A proposal when becomes a promise. A promise is defined in section 2. A proposal when accepted becomes a promise. So now only I said a proposal should be accepted. A proposal should be accepted. Then only it becomes a promise. So I think you are very clear what is an agreement and what is an promise. What is an agreement and what is an promise? So agreement involves a proposal or a offer. Agreement involves a proposal. Oh my god, just wait a minute. An agreement involves a proposal or offer by one party and acceptance of the same by other party. Now only I said, whatever the proposal is there, whatever the offer is there by one party, if other party accepts it, then only we can go for an agreement. So it requires existence of two parties. Obviously, one single person can't make an agreement. We need two persons to make an agreement. It also implies that parties have a common intention about the subject matter of their agreement. Though both the parties should have a common intention that, now take for example, I gave an example of the soaps manufacturing industry. Now that fellow wants the soaps, that is his intention. The opposite fellow needs money, that is his intention. So that is the subject matter of their